campus in the South.
Right, do we love it or do we not love it? We love it, yes.
Well, I know you got. I hear him laughing.
Yes.
I'm waiting laughing. I'm your both.
We're back with our artist talk. It's been a minute. It feels like since our last talk. I think we last spoke with Candy Carver a couple of months ago. That was during the summer. And today, this afternoon, we are so excited to welcome George Shomari Smith with continuing his exhibit, Spirit Force. So we're going to talk this afternoon for a pair of seconds about your history, your development as an artist, and then bringing us to this work as well. So we get to chatty chat for about 30-ish minutes. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll take questions, but we'll be very fluid with it. So we're here at 821 Upshur Street at the Art of Noize, but you are a Brooklynite. Can you take us back a little bit to your upbringing in Brooklyn?
Well, we grew up in an area known as Fort Greene, and they were projects, and we used to call it the Fort. Mm-hmm. Hi, come right on in.
Hi, how are you?
It's fine.
Sorry.
And so we lived in the Fort, and it was very similar to growing up in a community, a village. Because you can be across town up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and if your neighbor saw you inappropriately doing something, I'm going to tell your mother when you get home, George.
Oh, so that was you?
Yes.
Oh, what were we doing inappropriately, George? That someone was telling their mother, your mother about.
Right on the back of a bus getting back home.
Oh, okay. So you have a bit of courage and confidence in you to hop on the back of a New York City bus. Okay.
That was a mode of transportation.
All right.
I hadn't planned on sharing that. But you plucked something and got it out of me.
Shomari, I said I would. I made that promise that we would try to get these great stories.
And sometimes we would get chastised by neighborhood police because they were a lot more community oriented at that time. Mm-hmm. And they were electric buses, and if you pull that cord, the electrical connection would go dead, and the bus couldn't move. Mm-hmm. So, but it was all community activity for mischievous young boys, as I once was.
I love it. This mischievous young boy has turned into a prolific and successful artist, but I know about folks from Brooklyn and folks from urban areas that you can move from the area, but it never leaves you. What were some of the influences of growing up in Brooklyn that showed up in your art or helped shape your view as an artist?
Influence from Brooklyn shows up in my art. That's a question I didn't have an answer for. So you have me thinking.
Great.
A very good friend of mine, Charles Johnson, was an excellent artist. And he and I used to run track together, cycle together. But he was always the sharpest in art class. So I was always trying to keep up with him. And Mrs. Hendricks, our 8th grade teacher, she said, Charles, this is a lovely work. Why'd you have it? So I'm sitting there, just waving and acting up. I said, Miss Hendricks, that's my line. Oh my goodness, it looks almost like Charles. She said, yeah, Miss Hendricks. He did it. His is his. And so I got a little status behind that.
Okay.
And we ran track together with 2 different distances. I was the middle and long distance when he was a sprinter. And I could beat everybody in the neighborhood at my distance. So I got a little rep behind that too. I'm not able to connect my activities with my art though. Other than I was always trying to keep up with Charles. He used to like draw horses. There was a horse he used to draw all the time called Man of War. That's a well-known horse in history of thoroughbred racing. And so we would go back and forth. And given the size of thoroughbred horses' legs and their body, they weren't going to be able to run as fast as they run. Given biology and all of those factors that go into developing how fast a person will run. Or B is not going to be able to fly because of wings, or like the hummingbird. Mm-hmm. But in spite of what scientists say, they can do everything in flight that anything can do in flight. And so now we kind of get into art. Mm-hmm. I like doing insects,
okay,
butterflies as well. Butterfly is a source for color inspiration as well. Mm-hmm. Getting back to where I go for color influences. Butterflies in nature, flowers and bees. Come on and have a seat. One of my old students. Well, the first time today, you told me that when I saw you this morning. I said, please come and bring a friend. I'm glad to see you here. And I know you're going to ask some questions. Now you got me on the spot.
And we have 2 seats right here. Yeah, we have 2 seats right here. Please don't be shy. Come on.
And so,
we're all family.
That's about as much as I can get artistically from Fort Greene. Mm-hmm. Some things you didn't ask, I'm not going to share because you didn't ask.
Oh, well, that's going to prompt me and really motivate me to keep on asking questions to see what else we can unearth. I think that Brooklyn has a very unique sound with the traffic, with the business owners, with people knowing about riding on the back of buses, or you can also hear the subway, you see folks on bikes. What do you remember about how Brooklyn sounded when you lived there and when you were growing up?
There was an L up on Myrtle Avenue. Went from J Street and Borough Hall, came all the way down Myrtle Avenue to, well, it wasn't Meadow, it was Williamsburg. And stopped, and then you could transfer from the L to the A train at J Street. A lot of times we used to like to ride in between the cars. And if you lived on Myrtle Avenue, you heard the L several times a day. But people got used to it, didn't mind them. You know, we used to have drawing contests, Charles lied about train and everything. And at Myrtle Avenue and J Street, you got transfer, got off, went down train steps, from the L to the train steps, then transferred to the A train, and went on to 59th Street in Manhattan to Harron High School, where I went to high school. And all the brothers coming down from Harlem, 125th Street, were coming down from 125, a direct route to 59th. And that was a learning experience. So I think about Brooklyn and a lot about Harlem, because a lot of cats I went to school with came down from 125th Street. Mm-hmm. And at that time I was interested in aviation. And Harron High School was an outstanding aviation school. So it's going to be a pilot. So I thought. Mm-hmm. But what's your next question?
Well, we're going to come back to that as well, because that sounded like a cliffhanger, because we're not in the cockpit of an airplane, we're here discussing your work. So clearly there was like a pivot along the way. But one last question I wanted to ask you about Brooklyn and the connection between Brooklyn and an influence. It's also a very visual borough. It's very colorful, the street signs, the styles of the stores, the styles of the people. So when you think about Brooklyn visually, what comes to mind?
Fort Greene Park, right up the street on Myrtle Avenue. We used to skate and sled down the hill. There's a monument at the top of it. Mm-hmm. I was reading a children's book, because I'm in the process of a children's book, about Brooklyn, and this young African-American male was talking about how the British were fighting in Brooklyn. And I said, he's talking about my whole neighborhood. So I'm reading that book. I pick up books from these free book sites throughout the city. And I really kind of like fell in love with it. And learned how important Brooklyn was back when we were trying to get freed from Great Britain. But that's another story. And
Yes, we're not going to go into that one. Okay.
but just the greenery. There wasn't that much color back in the late and early 50s. It was just a great town.
Mm-hmm.
Bricks were grayish, brown, in the projects. And you go to Fort Wayne Park, grass, green, some areas that's flowers. But the color was when I used to hang out with the cats from Harlem and go up and be on 125th Street. That whole block, from 11th Street all the way over to 6th Street, was colorful based upon the attire that the people were wearing. And it was Jacob Long was strongly influenced by the colors that he would see. And Jacob, like myself, our mothers were seamstress. And my mother used to make my daughter's clothes, her daughter's clothes, my sister's clothes. And mother could sew very well, but she didn't want to tackle making the suits, so I didn't get any new clothes at least. So, those.
Okay, so if we must leave Brooklyn, then you came down here to attend Howard. Can you tell us about your choice to attend the Mecca?
Well, at that time they called it the Cornerstone. And I got to Howard by way of Shaw University. I was in school at New York City Community College. And Uncle Sam decided he wanted to have a war in Vietnam. And I decided I wasn't going.
You didn't contribute to that decision?
No.
Okay.
And I saw people who have contributed to it, and they're no longer with us. And a lot of the other young men and women were snatched up. So my dad and I had a talk one time. He was not a military person, so he and I were the same mindset. And so I was in school part-time and working full-time. In order to get a pass, I'll call it, you had to be in school full-time. So I applied to about 5 schools. Morgan State, Texas Southern, cousin went, Shaw, Howard, and St. Aug, down in North Carolina. And Shaw University responded to me first. So I had to get certain paperwork in the Upper Sam so I wouldn't go. So that's where I went. Got down there and met the art teacher and started making inquiries about the art program and supplies and whatnot. She gave me some drawn paper and some crayons. I said, this ain't the place. This ain't the place for me.
Okay.
But Shaw University had a policy. You had to spend at least a year there before they allow you to transfer.
Okay, so they wanted you to be sure that you wanted to go.
Say that again?
They wanted you to be sure about your decision.
Is that why they did that?
I'm asking.
I don't know.
No. Okay.
Because so you got me telling stories.
Please continue.
Jonathan Blunt was in my class. Same English class as Ms. Watson. He used to study the dictionary. Jonathan Blunt was the founder of Essence magazine before he sold it. And so that was a good experience, you know. He was arguing with Mrs. Watson. But he would do like my cousin used to do. Study words from the magazine. I'm sorry, from the dictionary.
Okay.
You know, your dad used to study words from the dictionary. And he would use that a lot in his social movement across the campus at the University of the District of Columbia, which was where I taught, and he went to school there before he got locked into all these fabulous computer things he's able to do. Well, next question.
Oh, we didn't finish though. You were transitioning from Shaw to Howard.
Oh, okay.
And your friend was using his vocabulary to outsmart Miss Watson.
He wasn't not smart enough.
Oh, he wasn't?
He
Okay.
wasn't, she was sharp.
Okay.
But they were dialoguing above everybody else in the class. But
Okay.
guess who was the president of Shaw University at that time?
Do we have any guesses?
I just say that as a part of the conversation.
I mean, some people know. The audience is smart. There might be someone on this road who knows,
I'm
you know.
hearing, I'm listening to what you pull from the audience as you pull on things from me.
Okay, so who was the president at the time?
James Cheek, the former Howard University.
Okay.
And he was a bit of a taskmaster himself. First arrival at Shaw University, right on the main drag, right through the city. So it's like about 6, 7 o'clock. I'm pulling over, let me see what this town is about. They would look at me and laugh. I said, what's up? They said, where you going? I said, well, there gotta be some social like this, the main drag. He said, 6 o'clock. I said, so? They just laughed, okay, we'll see when you get back. I walked to the left of the downtown. Wasn't nothing open at 7. No clubs and no nothing. I said, I'll be John Brown. So I went on back to the door. And,
That was the Brooklyn and you coming out.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn and you looking for something to do at 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you thought things were going to be on and popping.
Correct.
They were not, it sounds like.
Wasn't nothing there.
Okay.
They closed the shop at 5.
Okay.
I said, man. And so, Buzzy and Ronnie. Buzzy was from the Bronx, Ronnie was from Manhattan. And his brother named Silk from Philly. So we kind of like, we all city dudes and come together. And we were older. I was like 22, 21 around the time because I've been working and had a little bit of wardrobe, had 7 months I go to school. And so we started hanging out. And this across the city slickers. And Silk had all silk suits.
That was his nickname?
Yeah.
Silk? Okay.
And we got to the point where we'd be in their room up in the back on the 3rd floor. And, you know, they had all sorts of social activities. And all sort of college male literature on the walls. College male literature. For art. That's not what it was. Right. And so, that got to be the place to hang out.
Okay.
On Friday, Silk from Philly, Ronnie from Manhattan, and Brothers from the Bronx, Smitty's from Brooklyn.
Oh, that was you, Smitty.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, Smitty from Brooklyn.
And so, they got to be a social hub on Friday night.
So that's where things were on and popping.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where things began to become on and popping.
Oh, okay.
And President Cheek heard about it,
Okay.
and he didn't like it.
Oh.
And so, things got a little too advanced from North Carolina, young men and women. And so the security would come by, okay, just slow this down. And security got to be a part of the activities.
Oh.
It didn't last long. Long story short, President Cheek came to knock on the door. Gentlemen, open this door. It was Ronnie, Buzzy, myself, and Silk. I'm from Brooklyn. I go to church every Sunday. But they had some sharp words for him. And something said to me, you're going to get caught in this trap because you ain't with these cats. And they knew all sorts of social games. And they played cards to go with some of the other social games.
The euphemisms here.
And so I said, oh. Then he went back, he, the president, and came in with the dean and 2 security and gave us some of the same language he was receiving. I said, he said, y'all want to stay here and y'all want to clean stuff. I'm trying to get away from here. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, especially you young folks, you judge by the company you keep. And mom and daddy said don't hang out with Johnny or Mary or whoever it might be.
Or Silk. Or Buzzy.
Well, they're old. I'm talking about these young ones. They don't know this shit.
Okay.
You can't hang out with everybody, even though they might be popular. Most of them, a lot of people are not so academic as but some of them. Mom said, you shouldn't be seen with him or her. Mom and daddy know what they're talking about.
So what did Jake say? What the dean?
He told us we had to change our ways.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part we did. But then, you know, old Brooklyn George
Oh, Smitty.
always had an attraction for beautiful human beings.
Very elegantly phrased.
And Cheek's brother was a dean at Shaw University, or somewhere in administration. And there was a young lady in my social science class. She looked somewhat like you.
Oh.
And she's always sitting in the yard in front of the president's house, which was on campus. And after Sunday school, or after church, because everybody had to go to church on Sunday at Shaw University. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. She'd be sitting there, and I'd be walking back to her. Hey, George, how you doing? Say, hey, what's happening? So that was my invitation to go sit in the front yard with her.
Okay.
And she's from Jersey. And so, yeah, go ahead, brother, laugh. I'm laughing with you as I tell the story. I don't know why I'm taking this road. I'm looking prepared to answer.
Oh, we're going to get there.
Things. She got me talking about this old man's history.
Well,
So-
artists are influenced when your work reflects the totality of your experience. So
I
just get to the
I haven't
backstory.
gotten to the part that has been informed. You got me telling about history of the young man on
We love it.
campus in the South.
Friends, do we love it or do we not love it? We love it, yes.
Well, I know you love it. I hear him laughing.
Yes.
I'm going to laughing at me or both. But anyway,
Bob, please continue. Yes.
the next day, the dean of men comes to my room. He said, man, you must be crazy. I said, why? You talking to the president's brother's girlfriend. And you had problems with these other guests from New York. And you messing with the president's brother's girlfriend? I said, she's my classmate.
Claiming innocence, huh?
That's what it was.
That's right.
So you know about that, I'm sure.
I know a few things.
So anyway, I said, well, the semester's almost over. Right. I'm going, I got about a B plus average. I want to just get this stuff and get up on it. Because they've already accepted me on Howard. That's where all the big gangsters and the big boys that do the art thing historically.
Okay.
So I got through that and got up on out of there and transferred up to Howard. And started getting a real art education. You know.
Okay, I'm going to pause here because we just heard some fantastic stories, and we're going to transition from all these juicy old stories to then talking about the art and the artists and all those things. But we'll go back to the audience and ask, does anybody have a question about what we've heard thus far about Shomari's experience and his time?
This is not the time for questions from the audience.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay, so hold your questions. If you have questions, we love that for you. And but just hold tight and come on. What is it time for? Is it time for more questions from me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we leave Shaw. It sounds like there were lots of motivating factors for you to get on up out of North Carolina and come up here to the district where you were influenced by a number of significant artists and the time period in which you came up here.
One positive thing I'll say about President Chief, that was at the beginning, from my point of view, the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. A lot of civil rights movement and benefited from Shaw University. It was right downtown in the city. And a brother named Beeble used to hang out with Jesse Jackson. And I remember him coming in. And they began, that was the first group of young artists, well, students, wearing frogs, them big picks. That's the first time I began to be introduced to that student revolt. And Brother Chief was on the Civil Rights Day. He was in concert with that movement. Even though he had his own style of getting to the coalition. But he was, when you got beyond all that immatureness that we were bringing him, he was straight. You know, I always had a lot of respect for him as I look back at what he is and what he did. And man, I'm graduating from Howard. I jumped a lot of stuff.
What do you want to go back to about Howard?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
I would see President Chief walking on campus. And I said, President Chief, what you doing up here? He said, Smith, you over here now? I said, yes.
Oh, you saw him walking at Howard?
Yeah.
Okay, after you left Shaw, and then he ends up at Howard.
I'm graduating. He comes to
you're
Howard as the president.
Okay.
So I don't have to deal with him no more. I said, what you doing up there? He said,
It's all behind you.
Yeah. He
Right.
said, I'm the president here now. I said, just in time for graduation. He said, you leaving? I said, yeah. He said, well, thank God for both of us. And so, but going back to when I got to Howard, James A. Porter, first book on African American art and artists, modern Negro art, was the chairman of the department here at that time. And Dean Lawson was the dean and head of the College of Arts. He was head of the music department. And James L. Wells was the chairman of the printmaking area, which is my major medium. Pierre Noel Jones was a noted outstanding female painter. There are a few names that escape me, but those are folks I came in regular contact with as a student-teacher relationship. Okay, then a brother who came to Howard my junior year named Ed Love was a sculptor. Jeff Donaldson came to Howard the year after I graduated from Howard with his more respect and black power perspective on art. I got to know him because I was teaching locally in the public schools, and I would literally stay in the town that you went to college. You're always back up on campus doing something for people. And so that's what happened in essence. Another question?
Yes. At that time, as you suggested, DC was a hotbed of political activity. And what I picked up in our previous conversation and what we've seen in your art, and even in the stories of that you just shared, I sense a spirit of agitation and dissatisfaction with status quo, and something of a refusal to follow rules just to get along.
Who was refusing to follow rules?
Little shorts with Miss Watson.
What rules was that? What rules?
Oh, that your shorts you had to wear long pants.
How did that become a rule?
Wasn't it a rule?
In her head, yes.
A rule that didn't seem to sit well with you. So
well, it was, from her point of view, it was disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was her rule. The school, because she had been there for such a long period of time, allowed your senses and your existence. You know, now I haven't found out, and the doctors I talk to, they don't know what the pineal gland is for. But in spiritual circles, it's a means of us relating to the sun and the cosmos. But folks on the religious bent tend not to interact readily with the spirituality that we all have. We're all an extension of nature, regardless to ethnicity or geographical location. Because God knows this COVID that came out of nowhere and is messing with everybody. So we are part of nature. And if we don't take care of nature, we won't be taking care of ourselves. That's for sure.
That is absolutely for sure. Thank you so much for sharing with us those good stories. Intentionally, I asked those stories because I wanted the audience to be able to get to know you as a person and really understand the depth of your work and where your work comes from and the meaning behind it and the wisdom and the thought and intention that you put into your work. So thank you so much for sharing those treats with us. And then, of course, for helping us to understand deeply what a talisman is and help us to connect with the virtues and values that each one of those images speaks to. So I encourage folks to take a look at the titles and to meditate for a moment on the title of the piece and seek to understand how the vision, the colors, the imagery that the piece includes connects to that virtue, and to ask yourself if you embody that and how you can embody that. Shomari will be around for a few more minutes for questions, so if you didn't have an opportunity to ask a question, or if you now have a question that you want to talk with him about, then we'll be able to take that opportunity. So thank you again.
Well, clearly, I've inspired something in everybody's mind. So Karen, I know you're gonna get some more questions when you get home. And Mr. Ferguson's gonna be here, because I've been talking to the Lord. He said, that's a good person, you need help. Because the people that come and gone trying to do this didn't have the team that he has. And I think that's phenomenal. Because I was trying to do it when my daughters weren't heavily involved with it, but they go on, they're young women, get married, they want to be having children. So I had to liquidate some of the things I was attempting to do. But we all have to help Mr. Ferguson in ways that you're able to do what you don't know until you start traveling in your own mind. All children, Chinese, African, from the 55 countries in Africa, Asia, everywhere. All children, male or female, love art. I don't care who they are. And that's, as I gave you the story about administration and math, you can teach a lot if you put your mind to it. Because I've created workshops teaching geometry with art. Because we talk about nose, eyes, and shapes. All those are geometrical figures. Geometry ain't nothing but geometrical figures. And everybody that I've encountered in my teaching profession, I can captivate and get them into an art project, which have helped. I taught in Vietnam vets to get over certain problems they had at the hospital center, just by talking about isosceles triangles, pentagons, and you see and hear these things, and the men who were veterans, they said, yeah, we know about the Pentagon, that's how I got shot up or whatever. But tell my stories coming up.
Well, let's go ahead and have an opportunity to mix and mingle a little bit. So thank you everyone for coming in. We really appreciate it. Let's give a round of applause.
Yeah. Woo.
Hey, guys.
Thank you. From George H. Smith.
An original what?
My pants are large. That's understandable. Everybody's 46 size. Stuff like that. 45. No. Wait,
Did you all enjoy the
absolutely.
artist? Good, great. How you doing, sir? How important is it to bring your children to something like this?
If you don't get a head start on life by bringing them to these kind of events, you're doing your kids a disservice.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
I try to make sure that I expose them to as much as you can.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know.
You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah.
So you know,
Well, they sat there attentively. They were listening to the Panthers stories.
exposure. It's all
Yeah.
about exposure.
Yeah. Definitely it's about exposure. Well, congratulations to you and your family. I wish you all well. Thank you for coming out. All right.